Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It was a quiet evening in a small roadside diner just outside the city. The kind of place people passed by without really noticing. A flickering neon sign buzzed softly above the door, and the smell of warm soup and fried potatoes filled the air. Only a few customers sat scattered around the worn wooden tables. Near the window, a man in his early 30s sat alone, slowly eating his dinner. His name was Daniel. He had just finished a long day of work and stopped there like he often did. Life had not been easy for him. After losing his wife a few years earlier, Daniel had been raising his little boy on his own. He knew what it meant to struggle, to stretch every dollar, and to pretend everything was fine even when it wasn't. As he lifted his fork again, the door of the diner creaked open. A young woman stepped inside, holding the hand of a little girl who looked about 6 years old. The woman's clothes were clean but worn, and her tired eyes revealed she had not slept well in days. The little girl had messy brown hair tied in a loose ponytail and clutched a small stuffed rabbit tightly in her arms. They quietly walked to a corner table. Daniel barely noticed them at first. But something about the way the little girl carefully climbed into the chair caught his attention. She looked around the diner with wide, curious eyes. The waitress came over with a polite smile. "What can I get for you tonight?" she asked. The young woman hesitated. She glanced at the menu for a long moment, then down at the small purse in her lap. "Just a glass of water for me," she said softly. The waitress paused, slightly confused. "And for your daughter?" The woman forced a small smile. "She's not hungry." But the little girl didn't say anything. She simply nodded quietly, though her eyes drifted around the room. Daniel watched from his table. Something about that answer didn't sit right with him. A few minutes passed. Daniel continued eating, but he couldn't help glancing toward the corner table every now and then. The woman and her daughter sat silently. The mother kept looking toward the door as if worried someone might come in. The little girl swung her feet gently beneath the chair. Then it happened. The little girl's gaze slowly shifted toward Daniel's table. Her eyes locked onto his plate. A full plate of warm food. Chicken, mashed potatoes, and vegetables. She didn't say anything. She didn't point or whisper. She just stared, not rudely. Not greedily, just quietly, the way a hungry child sometimes does when they're trying very hard not to ask for something. Daniel felt a strange heaviness in his chest. He knew that look. He had seen it before on his own son when times were difficult. The little girl quickly looked away when she noticed him glance back. She lowered her eyes and hugged her stuffed rabbit closer. A few minutes later, the young woman stood up. She reached into her purse and placed a couple of coins on the table for the water. Then she gently took her daughter's hand. "Come on, sweetheart," she whispered. They began walking toward the door. Quietly, as if trying not to be noticed, but Daniel noticed, and he noticed the little girl one more time as she passed his table. For just a second, she looked again at his plate, then she quickly looked down. Daniel pushed his chair back. "Wait," he said. The woman froze near the door. She turned around slowly, her expression tense, almost embarrassed. Daniel stood up and walked toward them. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "I couldn't help noticing. Did you two already eat tonight?" The woman immediately shook her head. "Oh no, we're fine. Thank you." Her voice carried that familiar tone people use when they are trying to hide their struggles. Daniel knelt down slightly to the little girl's level. "Hey there," he said with a warm smile. "What's your name?" The little girl hesitated, then whispered, "Lily." "Well, Lily," Daniel said kindly, "I accidentally ordered way too much food. And I really hate wasting it." He looked at the mother. "Would you mind helping me finish it?" The woman's face turned red. "Oh, we couldn't." But Lily looked up at her mother with hopeful eyes. Daniel noticed that immediately. "It's really no trouble," he added. "Honestly, you'd be doing me a favor." The woman looked down at her daughter again, then finally she sighed softly. "All right," she said quietly. They walked back to the table. Daniel waved to the waitress. "Could we get another plate, please?" Within minutes, the waitress brought fresh food, hot soup, bread, another meal. Lily's eyes lit up the moment the food arrived. She tried to eat politely, slowly, but it was obvious she had been hungry for a long time. Daniel pretended not to notice. He simply continued his meal and made casual conversation. "So Lily," he said, "do you like school?" The little girl nodded eagerly. My teacher says I draw really good animals. Is that so? Daniel smiled. Yes. I draw rabbits, because of Mr. Fluffy. She held up her stuffed rabbit proudly. Daniel chuckled. I think Mr. Fluffy approves. The atmosphere slowly changed, the tension faded. For the first time since entering the diner, Lily's mother allowed herself to relax slightly. After a while, Daniel asked gently, Are you new to town? The woman hesitated before answering, Yes, we arrived a few days ago. Looking for work? She nodded. I was promised a job here, but when we arrived, the position had already been filled. Daniel frowned. So you've just been trying to figure things out? The woman looked down at the table. Something like that. Daniel understood more than she said. When dinner was finished, Lily leaned back in her chair happily. That was the best soup ever, she said. Daniel smiled. Then Lily's mother suddenly stood up. Thank you for the meal, she said sincerely. You didn't have to do that. Daniel waved it off. It's nothing. But then he noticed something again. The woman still looked worried. As if she had nowhere to go after leaving the diner. Daniel thought for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. I run a small repair shop a few blocks from here, he said. We've been needing someone to help with office work. Answering phones, organizing paperwork. The woman blinked in surprise. Really? It's not a fancy job, Daniel said honestly. But it's steady work. Tears instantly filled the woman's eyes. You would really give me a chance? Daniel shrugged gently. Everyone deserves one. Lily suddenly jumped out of her chair and hugged him. Thank you, mister. Daniel laughed softly. You're welcome, kiddo. That night, something small but important changed, not just for Lily and her mother, but for Daniel too, because sometimes, the smallest moment, like a child quietly staring at someone's plate, can lead to something much bigger. Weeks passed. Lily's mother started working at Daniel's repair shop. She turned out to be incredibly organized and hardworking. The shop ran smoother than it ever had, and every afternoon after school, Lily would sit at the little desk in the corner drawing animals while waiting for her mom to finish work. The repair shop slowly became more than just a workplace. It became a place where laughter returned, where dinner wasn't skipped, where a little girl never had to stare at someone else's plate again. And Daniel realized something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Sometimes life changes not because of a grand event, but because someone simply chooses to notice. Notice a quiet moment. A silent look. A hungry child pretending not to be hungry, and deciding to care, because kindness, even the smallest act of it, can echo farther than we ever imagine. And it all started that evening, when she tried to leave quietly, but he saw her little girl staring at his plate.